Hello, Mr. Jericho. I don't expect you to find this. In fact, part of me hopes that you don't find it at all. But if you do, here are a few ground rules. I'm not talking to the guy behind Chris Jericho. I don't know that guy. I don't care to know that guy. I've got nothing to say to him. Instead, I'm speaking to Chris Jericho, the character, the guy I've watched on TV for about 2 decades. As a viewer, I know that guy, and as a fan, I care about his legacy. I want to have a candid conversation with that guy about his career in 2026. See, I'm going for more of like a rhetorical device kind of thing with the framing rather than an overbearing parasocial missive, right? Okay? Okay. Indeed, I've taken a break from making these videos as a disembodied voice in the void of space because I want you to see that this comes from a fan. Well, a former fan. I don't like putting that qualifier on it, but that's where we're at. Because I was a fan. I first saw you around 2008. You know, the run with the suit and the big words? Oh my gosh. As a child with a love for pretentious verbiage, that was captivating television. From that moment on, you would be one of the most consistent performers in my early pro wrestling fandom. The Rey Mysterio feud, the CM Punk feud, the List of Jericho, the Festival of Friendship, and that program with Kevin Owens that really deserved better than it got. I mean, it was great stuff. You made a career and a legacy out of being one of these people with this nebulous skill set to make whatever crap WWE was producing really work for you. But then 2017 rolls around and suddenly it's a very different wrestling world. Thanks to the internet, independent and foreign wrestling had an unprecedented level of interest in the US, and I think you were savvy enough to see that. Cue your exit from WWE, going to New Japan, having that Kenny match. Between New Japan's growing reputation in the United States, Kenny Omega's massive online fandom, and your mainstream star power, there's an argument to be made that you, not quite single-handedly, but had a massive part in exposing a massive swath of US fans to non-WWE wrestling, probably the biggest swath of fans that had been exposed to non-WWE wrestling that century. It all led to All Elite Wrestling, which since 2019 has thrived for closer to a decade than not, despite the insistence of initial naysayers. It's been so long, in fact, that newer fans might not know or appreciate just how integral you were to AEW in the beginning. But I remember. I was there. Sure, AEW already had the prestigious Elite and funding from a rich kid with the right kind of hyperfixation, and that would have gotten them plenty far. But to immediately be established as a popular wrestling brand in the US, you need household names, preferably from the late 90s or early 2000s, not just to get fans in the door, but in the name of legitimacy. There needed to be assurance that this wasn't just a flash in the pan or a money laundering scheme. Why we'd trust a pro wrestler to tell us what is or is not a scam is beyond me, but we do. It helps. Your contributions didn't stop there, and not just because you were the promotion's first world champion. You were a huge part of AEW's initial creative voice as it navigated its first year of TV. You provided so many instantly memorable segments in Dynamite's first year. That parody of the schmaltzy Cody video package before your title match, Le Dinner Debonair? Dude, I curse every day that there isn't another segment like Le Dinner Debonair, preferably with a better vocalist, but who else would have been willing to do it in the first place? Only you. And MJF. And of course those segments worked because they were the same kind of things that were working in 2016, in 2008, in 1998. What's given you so much longevity in your career is this ability to consistently make good wrestling TV. I wouldn't say you're ever reinventing the wheel per se, but you are presenting the wheel in new and fun ways. It gave lapsed fans something that felt familiar, and it gave AEW an artistic through line that ran all the way back to the last golden age of wrestling television, the late 90s. But of course, that was only ever going to be beginner stuff, a foundation on which AEW could build its own sense of style and genre. By 2022, it had fleshed out pretty well, though maybe hadn't strayed enough from WWE-esque programming for a lot of fans' tastes. With AEW leaning away from sports entertainment, where does that leave Chris Jericho, professional sports entertainer? Well, you had a pretty solid idea. If sports entertainment isn't desirable, then that makes it solid ground for a heel gimmick. And so the Jericho Appreciation Society was born, a group dedicated to all things that made wrestling silly, obnoxious, and fun, depending on who you ask. Strong concept on paper, but by year 3 of AEW's existence, the whole pro wrestling versus sports entertainment thing was kind of played out. AEW, and by extension the Blackpool Combat Club, the pro wrestling portion of this whole equation, may have been better served by another group with a strong and unique view of the future of pro wrestling, rather than a group that pandered to pro wrestling's past. The former would have been more of a benefit to Daniel Garcia. Let's talk about Danny, the young crown jewel of the JAS. 4 years later, how much did Daniel Garcia get out of this sports entertainer run? In theory, taking Garcia under your wing was a good pairing to help the young man get some character work under his belt. But it didn't really pan out that way. In practice, Daniel Garcia became a hip-thrusting sycophant, a character that was much flatter than the young, driven competitor he was before. Sure, he had a gimmick, if thrusting henchmen can be considered a gimmick, but he didn't really gain any depth that would benefit him in the long run. This result was unavoidable because, well, you've never really been a depth guy. Your numerous catchphrases and gimmicks that do get over, they're strong ideas, but they are ultimately surface level. And hey, wrestling thrives on the surface level, on these simple ideas that play well if you are just portraying them physically, the things that play well to the cheap seats as well as they do to the viewers watching at home. But the thing about pro wrestling television is that it isn't just that live performance theater kind of thing. It is television, this continuous narrative where people kind of want things with depth, or at least want things to stay fresh. That's why you pretty much had to reinvent your wrestling persona every few years. If you didn't, the shticks would become stale. It's an approach to wrestling character that prioritizes simple ideas that crowds will get. Hell, you've had entire runs pretty much based on a single catchphrase. Like, what are the characteristics of the List era of Chris Jericho besides does bits and wears scarf? There aren't any, but that's fine. In a year or two, it'll be replaced with a whole new version of Chris Jericho, with face paint and spikes. But this strat is fundamentally at odds with how AEW tries to structure its storytelling. Granted, it wasn't really a unified approach at first, but if you look at characters like Hangman Adam Page, like Kenny Omega, like Jon Moxley, their longevity and appeal come from their ability to draw from their own continuity and form an overarching story for their wrestling character. And it's not like it's a binary choice of you can do continuity or you can do silly stuff with broad appeal. Just look at timeless Toni Storm. There's an understandable at a glance capital G gimmick that was created using continuity with Toni's career journey. And she was more than able to tell character-based stories with decent depth in her feuds. You've got some solid character feuds in your AEW run, MJF, Eddie Kingston, those are some solid foils for you. But in a vacuum, perhaps in some kind of Jericho vortex, the character of Chris Jericho doesn't have much to offer other characters as a foil to them. Because the kayfabe character of Chris Jericho isn't much more than a collection of catchphrases and gimmicks strung together by a big ego. This lack of depth is why your AEW feuds have felt as unproductive as they do. We could go back and forth all day about whether you technically win or lose feuds or whether they go on way too long. No matter the mechanics of them, it feels like your opponents don't gain very much from feuds against you. This is because the character of Chris Jericho is about as solid and well-defined as the price and practical value of an NFT. Super cool move to rep an NFT in 2026, by the way. Really shows you've got your finger on the pulse, no matter how little it's beating. Since the character of Chris Jericho is so ill-defined, we don't learn much about a wrestler when they win or lose against Chris Jericho. It's singled you out as a notably stagnant character in an environment that thrives on dynamism. Even if there was a place for Chris Jericho's style of storytelling in AEW in 2026, those reinventions haven't had the same juice that they used to, have they? Just look at your three factions in AEW so far. The Inner Circle, the Jericho Appreciation Society, and the Learning Tree. As an aside, it is a great act of kindness from me to you that I do not dwell on the Learning Tree in this video. All three of these factions can be described as a group of guys rally around Chris Jericho because he's so cool and legendary and he can teach them a lot. Beyond the sameness of it all, it's a concept that relies on Chris Jericho being a good mentor and elevating the young guys who align with him. Does that idea hold water? Let's take your adoptive wrestle sons from each of these groups and see what Chris Jericho did for them. As part of the Inner Circle, Sammy Guevara became a bigger star than he ever had been before. Granted, this was his first run on national TV, so his stock kind of would have risen anyway, but this Inner Circle run did give him consistent TV time and minutes against main event stars thanks to his proximity to you, the world champion at the time. These are invaluable to any young star looking to build their stock. And while Sammy isn't super prominent on TV today, I don't really lay that at your feet. Sammy kind of always had a bit of a ceiling. For Sammy, I'd say you break even. We'll give it a C+. For the JAS, we could also count Sammy Guevara, which was kind of a problem for Sammy Guevara, but the more obvious choice is the aforementioned Daniel Garcia. As I said, I don't think he gained much in terms of character from this run, and being Chris Jericho's on-screen friend isn't as valuable when Chris Jericho isn't the world champion, which you were not at the time. Post-JAS Daniel Garcia was pretty lost at sea, but has recently righted his course as part of Jon Moxley's violent supergroup, which kind of indicates that that's what he should have done the first time around in 2022. Remember, he could have joined the Blackpool Combat Club, but instead he joined up with you because he wanted to be a sports entertainer. Observably bad move in hindsight. You get a D for Danny. Brian Keith. Here's what you did to Brian Keith. You took this guy with a super cool bounty hunter gimmick and said, hey, you know this bounty hunter gimmick, which is kind of a free pass to put him in kind of random TV matches that'll make sense without a ton of storytelling investment? What if we just didn't do the gimmick at all? What if instead Brian Keith was my friend? He was my guy, and he acted a little bit like me because, you know, I'm so cool and so successful in the wrestling industry, and his character is that he's like, he likes me, and he's my friend, and he's mean to people who are mean to me because he's my friend and he's my guy, and I'm teaching him super good because I'm super awesome and cool. And instead of the bounty hunter thing, which we're not doing at all as a gimmick, by the way, what if he was the bad apple because I'm the learning tree, and he's a silly guy and he's my friend, and that's what we do with Brian Keith? You think that's gonna improve his stock in the wrestling world? You get a G for what you did to Brian Keith, you very, very bad man. Or should I call you a bad apple? Would that be cool? Would that get frickin' merch sold and improve the stock at all? I don't think so. DPW didn't die for this bullshit, man. This is bogus. Young guys who align with Chris Jericho don't get much out of the partnership, so it makes the next guy, who aligns with Chris Jericho, look even more like a stupid loser than the last guy was. These projects, these factions, were the same basic idea repackaged 3 times over, and none of them truly worked. This is proof that something is very wrong at the Jericho Creative Factory. Which brings us to the present day. After nearly a year away from the ring, you return to AEW TV on April 1st, and it was a bit of a foolish endeavor in hindsight. After about a year away, you returned in front of a hometown crowd, and the ovation was polite. You know, they cheered, but more so out of obligation than, oh, thank goodness you're back. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, as they say, but there is another side to absence. Sometimes absence makes one realize just how little is lost within that absence. And in your absence, AEW got along just fine. A lot of new, exciting acts have gotten over in the time you were away. Bandito's a guy who has benefited from not feuding with you ever again, I can say that much. And there was more airtime to get these acts over without, obligatory Jericho segments. A lot of fans, including myself, came to the same simple conclusion. We have moved past the need for Chris Jericho in AEW. Granted, that perception would have changed with some good work coming out of your return. That didn't happen. The Ricochet feud was thin on content, including a rehash of the list gimmick, an admission of creative defeat if I have ever seen one, and the Ciampa feud is being built on Tommy wanting to see the 2019 Chris Jericho come back, even though he's not all that appreciably different from 2026 Chris Jericho, aside from his placement on the card. And for your part, you've been running a very 90s pilled promo style that just feels anachronistic these days. We've seen you manipulate crowds into chanting inane phrases like Tommy's mommy for 2 decades. It's not impressive anymore. Look at how they eat the slop out of my hand. Make better food. You can't do that, right? Or maybe the tank really is that empty. I want to give you some amount of credit. I think you can feel what I feel. For the master of wrestling reinvention, Chris Jericho, running back these old gimmicks feels like an intentional sign that the end is on the horizon. I just want to urge you to consider the possibility that the end is sooner than you might think. I want to play a clip of you from an interview with the In the Click podcast from 2022.
Gotcha.
So for Fozzy fans, I can't appeal to the people that hate my band. All I can do is make our fans happy and attract new fans. Same with AEW, same with Talk is Jericho, same with anything that Chris Jericho does. If you hate Chris Jericho, I can't change your mind. And that's okay. You're allowed to hate me, but I'm not going to worry about you. I've got no problems with you guys. I will appeal to the Chris Jericho fans and to try and make new Chris Jericho fans. That's my goal.
Damn. I'm ready to run through a wall for you right now.
I don't think there are new Chris Jericho fans anymore, because what does a new fan get out of Chris Jericho in 2026? You don't move the way you used to. Your creative swings are getting repetitive and unreliable. Your approach to performance and to promos doesn't really speak to the modern world we currently live in, and your artistic instincts and values are so misaligned with what makes AEW intriguing in 2026 that new viewers aren't likely to be charmed by your particular approach to entertainment. I've been pretty harsh in this video, and I apologize for that. I don't take back anything I said, I stand by my opinion, but I'm sure it sucks to hear. But the reason I tell you all of this is because it's best for your legacy if you understand where you're at right now. I think you are one of the best in the world at making a certain kind of pro wrestling television. Call it sports entertainment, call it whatever. You were a central piece of the voice of pro wrestling in the US for 20 years. That longevity of greatness in your field deserves to be celebrated. You deserve to be remembered as pro wrestling's former present, not as its current past. Do you understand what I'm saying to you right now? Whatever your plan for your final run is, you've got to shorten it. There is no more positive growth going forward. Continued exposure to Chris Jericho on AEW TV will only breed resentment in the viewer. My only proof on that is subjective experience, my personal subjective experience, so you can discount my word, but I don't think I'm wrong. And if I'm right, then by the time you do retire in 2027, 2028? By then, all fans are gonna feel is a sense of relief, and you deserve better than that. You're a part of AEW history, of pro wrestling history, dare I say, of television history. I want to remember you that way, but it's hard when all I see is what you are now, and what you are now just doesn't live up to your own legacy. You came into AEW in 2019 seeking a thank you for all that you've done, and I want to thank you for everything you've done and accomplished, and hopefully I will soon. But for now, I think it's best if I thank you on your way out. Thank you for watching. Please leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe if you want to see more like this. And if you want to support me further, you can become a channel member starting at $2.99 a month. That'll get you access to member-exclusive bonus videos, and will get your name on screen at the end of every public video. And for $5.99, you'll get all that, plus a spoken shout-out at the end of every public video, which will sound a little something like this. Thank you to my supporters but larger, TB Skyen, Stephen Gorman, Norman the Great Dane, Jack Kruger, and Yami Loves Wrestling. I sincerely hope you enjoyed this new approach to, the look of my videos and this whole open letter format. I'm not sure if I'll be using it in the future. It'll definitely be sort of context-based, but I will probably be doing more of these videos with my face on camera, so you can look forward to that. Also, I'm not sure if I did it in this video or not, but as you can see, I changed my channel name recently. It would really help me out if you push these videos to whoever you think would like them. Also, just doing that generally, but especially if people saw the last name and they don't know what this channel is, that would help. So, thank you very much. I think I've rambled enough to keep these names on screen because they deserve it for supporting me. And I'll see you in the next video, which will be about something or other. Okay, thank you very much. Goodbye.